I knew the moment I heard his voice in the hallway, low, controlled, devastatingly familiar, that my carefully rebuilt life was about to shatter, and my daughter's tiny hand clutching mine was the only thing keeping me from running. "Mommy, my throat feels funny." Livia's words were small and scared, her 6-year-old face pale under the clinic's fluorescent lights. I forced myself to focus on her, not on the man whose presence I could feel like a shift in air pressure 3 rooms away. The afternoon had started normally enough, picking her up from aftercare, planning to grab groceries before dinner. Then she touched her face after eating a granola bar at the corner bodega, and within minutes, her lips were swelling. "I know, baby. The doctor's going to help." I kept my voice steady even as my pulse hammered. Her reaction was progressing fast, too fast. The nurse appeared with an EpiPen, and I held Livia still while the injection went in. She whimpered, and I pressed my lips to her hair, breathing in her strawberry shampoo and trying not to think about the fact that Alessandro was here, in this building, when I'd chosen this private clinic specifically because it was supposed to be anonymous and fast. "Ms. Hart?" The doctor stepped in, chart in hand, young, competent Princeton ring on her finger. "We need to monitor her for at least 4 hours. Sesame allergies can have delayed secondary reactions." 4 hours? My voice cracked. Non-negotiable for anaphylaxis protocol. She glanced at her notes. "Does it run in the family? These severe food allergies often have a genetic component." My stomach dropped. Before I could answer, a shadow filled the doorway. "Dr. Lin, I need that conference room for another 20 minutes. Security assessment isn't complete." "Alessandro." His voice slid over my skin like a blade wrapped in silk, and my entire body betrayed me. Heat pooled low in my belly, my breath caught. My thighs tensed against the stupid, traitorous memory of what that voice used to do to me in the dark. I turned my head just enough to see him. 6 years. 6 years since he'd handed me divorce papers and told me it was for my protection. And he still looked like he could ruin me with a glance. Charcoal suit tailored to his broad shoulders. Dark hair touched with gray at the temples now. Those sharp, cold eyes that missed nothing. He was looking at the doctor, not at me. Not yet. "Of course, Mr. Moretti." Dr. Lin's voice went deferential, almost nervous. "We'll work around your timeline." "Moretti." My heart skipped. I'd forgotten what it felt like to hear other people say his name with fear. I bent over Livia, letting my hair fall forward to hide my face. My hands were shaking as I smoothed her blanket. "The conference room's on the 3rd floor," Alessandro continued. "I want all security footage from the past week reviewed before we finalize the contract. This clinic will handle certain clients who require discretion." "Absolutely. Whatever you need." Their voices faded as they moved down the hall, and I finally let myself breathe. 4 hours. I had to keep Livia and myself invisible for 4 hours while he was somewhere in this building. We'd checked in under my maiden name, Hart, not Moretti. The intake form listed me as divorced. Emergency contact blank. I'd paid cash for the expedited private service. There was no reason for him to know we were here, unless someone told him about the sesame allergy, unless he put together the timeline, unless he started asking questions about the genetics comment Dr. Lin had just made. "Mommy?" Livia's voice was stronger now, the Benadryl and epinephrine doing their work. "Is that man the reason you're scared?" My daughter, too smart, too observant. "I'm not scared, baby." The lie tasted bitter. "I just want to make sure you're okay. You're doing the thing with your hands." She pointed at my fingers, which were twisting together in my lap. "You always do that when you're worried." I forced my hands flat against my thighs. "Rest now. Close your eyes." She obeyed, her little body finally relaxing against the pillows, and I stood, moving to the small window that overlooked the hallway. I could see the nurse's station from here, the security camera in the corner, the elevator at the end of the corridor, and Alessandro, stepping out of the conference room with 2 men in dark suits who looked like exactly what they were, enforcers in expensive clothes. He was saying something to them, his expression unreadable, when his gaze swept the hallway and locked on me through the window. Everything stopped. My heart, my breath, time itself. His eyes narrowed, and I watched recognition move through him like a storm cloud. Shock first, a barely perceptible widening of his eyes. Then something harder, colder. He said something sharp to his men and started walking toward my door. I moved fast, crossing the room to stand between him and Livia's bed, my body a wall. When he opened the door without knocking, I was ready. "You need to leave," I said quietly. "Now." Alessandro stopped 3 feet inside the room. He was bigger than I remembered, broader, heavier, more dangerous. The kind of man who made spaces shrink just by occupying them. And I hated that my body still reacted anyway. "Vivienne." My name in his mouth after 6 years felt like a hand closing around my throat. Or should I say, Ms. Hart? It's my name, legally. I kept my voice low, aware of Livia sleeping behind me. "You don't get to use the other one anymore. Because I gave you papers." His tone was flat, but something violent moved behind his eyes. "Because I told you leaving was necessary. It was your choice, your protection plan that I never asked for. It kept you alive. It destroyed me." The words came out sharper than I intended. "But you got what you wanted. I stayed gone. And yet here you are, in a clinic I'm affiliated with." He took one step closer and my pulse jumped. "Using your maiden name on the intake paperwork. Hart is legally mine. There's nothing false about it. There is when you're trying to hide." Another step. Close enough now that I could smell his cologne. Cedar and something darker. Something that made my body remember things my mind had spent 6 years trying to forget. "Who's the child?" My blood turned to ice. "None of your business." Everything in this building became my business the moment I walked in. His gaze flicked past me to the bed, and I saw him taking in details. Livia's dark hair spread across the pillow. Her small hands curled against the blanket. The way her face was shaped. "How old?" "Leave. Now. Or I'll scream, and your security assessment will turn into a very public scene." Alessandro's jaw tightened. For 3 seconds we stared at each other, and I felt the weight of everything unsaid pressing between us. 6 years of silence. 6 years of questions I'd never asked because I'd been too afraid of the answers. 6 years of raising his daughter alone because he'd made it clear I was safer without him. "Dr. Lin mentioned a sesame allergy," he said softly, and my stomach clenched. "She said it runs in families. Lots of things run in families. My mother nearly died from a sesame reaction when I was 12. His voice was so controlled it was almost empty. "It's rare, severe sesame anaphylaxis. It runs in families, and mine is severe." The room tilted. "Get out." "How old, Vivienne?" I said get out. He moved then, faster than I could block, stepping around me to the side of Livia's bed. Not touching her, just looking. His expression carved from stone as he studied her sleeping face. I watched him do the math, his eyes moving from her face to mine and back again. Calculating. 6 years since the divorce. She'd be 6, right at the edge of the timeline. Maybe conceived just before the papers were signed, maybe just after, but conceived. I grabbed his arm, my fingers barely closing around the expensive fabric of his suit. "Don't you dare." "She has my chin." His voice cracked on the last word, and the sound of it nearly broke me. "And your eyes, and she's exactly the right age." I yanked him backward, away from the bed, shoving him toward the door with strength I didn't know I had. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to show up and, is she mine?" The question hung in the air between us like a grenade with the pin pulled. I could lie, should lie, but Alessandro's eyes were locked on mine with an intensity that made my bones ache, and I'd never been good at lying to him. "You gave me divorce papers," I said instead. "You told me you were protecting me. You said loving you made me a target. Answer the question. You don't get answers. You get nothing." My voice was shaking now, all my careful control splintering. "You wanted me gone. You got what you wanted. I wanted you safe." He was in my space again, close enough that I had to tilt my head back, to meet his eyes, close enough that I could feel the heat of him. "I wanted you alive. Do you understand what that cost me? Do you understand what it cost me?" The words ripped out of me before I could stop them. Walking away from the only man I ever loved because he decided I wasn't worth the risk. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "Is that what you think?" That you weren't worth. Mommy, Livia's small voice cut through the tension like a knife, and we both froze. She was sitting up in bed, her eyes wide and fixed on Alessandro. Who's that man? Why are you fighting? I moved immediately, putting myself between them again. No one, baby. He's just leaving. But Alessandro wasn't looking at me anymore. He was staring at Livia like she was something holy and terrible all at once. And when he spoke, his voice was rough. What's your name? You don't talk to her, I snapped. You don't look at her. You turn around and walk out that door. He ignored me completely. Your name, sweetheart. Can you tell me? Livia glanced at me, uncertain, and then back at him. Livia? I watched him absorb it. Watched the name hit him like a bullet. Livia? His grandmother's name. The one he'd told me once, late at night with his guard down, that he'd always loved. The one I'd chosen for our daughter, because even hating him, even walking away, I couldn't forget that moment. Livia, he repeated softly. Then to me, with his eyes still on her. 4 hours monitoring. That's what Dr. Lin said. We'll be gone the second she's cleared. No. He turned to face me fully, and the man I'd married, the one who controlled half of Manhattan's underworld with a whisper, was back. You'll stay in this room. Security will be posted outside. No one comes in or out without my approval. You don't get to. Someone needs to explain to me why I have a daughter I knew nothing about. His voice dropped to something lethal. And you're going to start with why you never told me you were pregnant. I tried. The words caught in my throat. Try again. But before I could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression went flat. I have to finish this meeting. He looked at me one more time, and there was something in his eyes I couldn't name. Rage, grief, possession. But we're not done, not even close. He walked out, closing the door behind him with careful precision, and I heard him say something low and sharp to someone in the hallway. He'd locked us in. I moved to the door immediately, blocked by 2 men outside. I pressed my ear against it and heard the low murmur of male voices, his security, standing guard. My phone. I could call someone, but who? My sister was 3 states away. I had no friends in the city who could stand up to Alessandro Moretti. And calling the police would only make things worse. Half of them were probably on his payroll. I turned back to look at Livia, who was watching me with worried eyes. Mommy, are we in trouble? I crossed the room and sat on the edge of her bed, smoothing her hair back. No, baby. We're safe. I promise. But as I said it, I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince. Her or myself. I spent the first 20 minutes after he left trying to find a way out. The window didn't open, sealed for climate control. The door was blocked with what sounded like 2 men stationed in the hallway. I'd tested it twice, and both times I'd heard the shuffle of feet and the low rumble of voices responding to the sound. Mommy, I'm hungry. Livia was sitting up now, color returning to her cheeks. The worst of the reaction behind her. Can we go home soon? Soon, baby. I pulled my phone from my purse and checked the time. 4:47 p.m. We'd been here an hour. 3 more to go before the monitoring window closed. 3 more hours of being locked in a room in a building Alessandro controlled. I opened my messages, thumb hovering over my sister's contact. But what would I even say? Hey, remember my ex-husband I never talk about? He just found out about Livia and locked us in a medical clinic. Rachel would lose her mind. She'd call the police, the FBI, maybe the governor, and Alessandro would make it all go away with a phone call and a check. And then I'd have no leverage left at all. I needed to think, strategically, the way I'd learned to think in the 6 years since I'd rebuilt my life from nothing. The door opened. Not Alessandro. A woman in her 50s, elegant in a cream silk blouse and tailored pants, carrying a tablet and wearing an expression that said she'd dealt with difficult situations before. Ms. Hart, she closed the door behind her. My name is Patricia Vance. I'm Mr. Moretti's executive assistant. I don't care who you are. I stood, putting myself between her and Livia again. You need to unlock that door. I'm afraid that's not possible. Her tone was professional but firm. Mr. Moretti has instructed me to inform you that until certain matters are resolved, no one leaves this building without his express approval. The medical monitoring window is irrelevant to that decision. The casual threat landed like a fist to my stomach. He's holding us hostage. He's ensuring his daughter receives proper care in a secure environment. Her voice was measured, like she was reading from a script. And he's taking time to understand a situation that represents a significant breach of trust. He's asked me to gather some basic information while he finishes a contract negotiation that cannot be postponed. Tell him he can go to... I caught myself, aware of Livia watching. Tell him I'm not answering questions. He anticipated you might say that. Patricia's expression didn't change. He also asked me to ensure you and your daughter have everything you need. What can I arrange for dinner? The shift from threat to hospitality was dizzying. She needs food, bland, nothing with sesame or tree nuts. Chicken broth, crackers, ginger ale. Patricia nodded, already typing on her tablet. I'll have it sent up immediately. Anything else? A way out of this room would be nice. She almost smiled. I'll see what I can do about the food. She left. I sat on the edge of Livia's bed and tried to breathe through the panic clawing at my throat. This was Alessandro, the man who'd built an empire on control and calculated moves. He wouldn't hurt Livia, I knew that much. But he also wouldn't let us walk away without answers. And some of those answers could destroy everything I'd built. 15 minutes later, a nurse brought in a tray with exactly what I'd asked for, plus a grilled cheese sandwich and apple slices. She set it on the table, smiled at Livia, and left without a word. I watched my daughter eat, her small hands tearing the sandwich into careful pieces, and tried to figure out my next move. Is that man my daddy? The question came so quietly, I almost missed it. My heart stopped. Why would you ask that, Liv? She didn't look at me, just kept pulling her sandwich apart. He looked at me the way Sarah's daddy looks at her, like I was really important. And you were scared of him, but not scary scared. Different scared. 6 years old, and she could read a room better than most adults. It's complicated, baby. That's what you always say when something's bad, but you don't want to tell me. She finally looked up, and her eyes, my eyes, in her face that was becoming more like his every day, were too knowing. I heard you say you tried to tell him something. Did you try to tell him about me? The walls felt like they were closing in. Yes. But he didn't know until today? No. She absorbed this, her small face serious. So he's my daddy, but he didn't know I existed. And now he's locked us in here because he's mad. When had my daughter become so sharp? He's not mad exactly, he's confused. And he wants to understand what happened. Are you going to tell him? The door opened before I could answer. Alessandro. He'd changed clothes. Dark jeans and a black sweater that made him look less like a CEO and more like the dangerous man I knew he actually was. His hair was slightly disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it. His eyes went to Livia first, scanning her face, her color, the half-eaten sandwich on her tray, then to me. We need to talk. We don't need to do anything. I kept my voice level. You need to unlock that door and let us leave. After we talk. He moved into the room, and I noticed he left the door open this time. A small concession, or maybe just confidence that I wouldn't try to run with Livia still hooked up to an IV monitor. Livia's right here, whatever you want to say. There's a consultation room next door. Patricia will sit with her. Absolutely not, for a second. He looked like he might force it. Then his gaze flicked to the IV line, and he exhaled once, and relaxed. Mommy, Livia's voice was small. It's okay. I like Miss Patricia. She's nice. I looked at my daughter, then at Alessandro, who was watching her with an expression I couldn't read. 10 minutes, I said finally. That's all you get. He nodded, and Patricia appeared in the doorway as if summoned. She smiled at Livia and pulled out a tablet. How about we watch something while your mom talks to Mr. Moretti? Do you like animated movies? Livia nodded, and I kissed her forehead before following Alessandro into the hallway. The consultation room was small. A table, 4 chairs, a whiteboard on the wall. Clinical and cold. He closed the door but didn't lock it, and I noticed he positioned himself between me and the exit, always controlling the space. Sit. I'll stand. His jaw tightened. Fine. He stepped closer, voice low and razor steady. Is she mine? I held his gaze. You already know. I want to hear you say it. Why? I laughed once, sharp and humorless. So you can turn it into leverage? His eyes flashed. Because I deserve the truth. 6 years, Vivian. I tried. The words came out rough. 3 months after the divorce was final, I found out I was pregnant. I tried to reach you. Tried how? I called your private number, disconnected. I went to the penthouse. New security, new protocols. I sent a letter through your lawyer. His face went still. Dangerous. What lawyer? Marcus Bennett. The one who handled the divorce. Marcus hasn't worked for me in 5 years, he said flat. He left 3 months after the divorce. My stomach dropped. That's impossible. Your office gave me his contact. I sent it. He stared at me like he was assembling a map from missing pieces. Then someone made sure it never reached me. The air thinned. My hands went cold. No one else knew, I said. Not until I was 5 months along. My sister helped me leave. By then, I'd accepted you weren't going to respond. His voice sharpened. So you decided to raise her alone. I decided to keep her alive. I took a breath, forcing my voice steady. You told me loving you made me a target. I believed you. He closed the distance in 2 strides, stopping just short of touching me. Heat radiated off him anyway. Did it ever occur to you, he said, each word precise, that she had a right to know me? Did it ever occur to you, I shot back, that you don't get to disappear and then demand rights like nothing happened? A muscle jumped in his jaw. His hands lifted. Then instead of grabbing me, he planted his palms on the wall on either side of my head, boxing me in without contact. You think I wanted that divorce? His voice was rough now. You think it didn't cost me? It cost me everything, I whispered. And you still won't tell me why. His eyes held mine, hard and haunted, like he'd been carrying the answer in his teeth for years. Because Dmitry Volkov had a rifle scope trained on your head. The words hit me like ice water. I'd heard that name before. Years ago, whispered in the background of phone calls Alessandro thought I couldn't hear. The Russian, I said quietly. The Russian who was trying to take over my territory. Who thought the fastest way to break me was to kill the one thing I... He stopped himself, jaw clenched. He had pictures of you. At the coffee shop you loved in the village. At the hospital where you worked. Walking home from your shift. You never told me that. Because telling you would have made it worse. You would have insisted on staying. You would have... He exhaled hard. So I lied. I told you I'd stopped loving you. That the marriage was a mistake. And I watched you believe it because it was the only way to make you leave. The room spun. 6 years. 6 years I'd carried the weight of thinking I hadn't been enough. That he'd looked at me and decided I wasn't worth the trouble. What happened to Volkov? He's in a federal prison in Colorado. Securities fraud, racketeering, weapons charges. He'll spend the rest of his life there. Alessandro's voice was flat. I made sure of it. How long after the divorce? 18 months. I processed that. 18 months of thinking I was still in danger. 18 months of believing he'd made the right choice. And you never reached out. I tried. His voice dropped, almost broken. 6 months after he was convicted, I tried to find you. You'd changed your name back to Hart. Left the hospital system. No forwarding address. No social media. You disappeared so completely, I thought... He stopped. I thought maybe you'd found someone else. Built a life that didn't include me, so I let you go. You let me go, I repeated, and something bitter twisted in my chest. You let me struggle alone with a newborn. You let me work double shifts to afford daycare. You let me... I didn't know. The words came out fierce. I didn't know about her, Vivian. If I had, nothing could have kept me away. We were breathing hard now, both of us. The space between us charged with 6 years of grief and rage, and something neither of us wanted to name. What's her favorite color? His question came quiet, almost tentative. The shift threw me. What? Livia? What's her favorite color? What does she like to eat? Is she good in school? Does she... His voice cracked. Does she ask about me? The vulnerability in his tone cracked something in my chest. Purple. She loves purple. She's obsessed with dinosaurs and marine biology. She reads at a 3rd grade level, even though she's only in 1st. And yes, I swallowed hard. She asks about you. I told her. I told her you were important and busy and far away. I've been 15 blocks from her for 6 years. I know. I missed everything. He wasn't looking at me anymore, his gaze fixed on something past my shoulder. First words, first steps. 6 birthdays. Alessandro, did you put my name on the birth certificate? The question was so quiet I almost missed it. No. Something flashed in his eyes. Why not? Because I was terrified. The truth spilled out before I could stop it. Terrified that if anyone connected her to you, she'd become exactly what I was, a target. A weakness someone could exploit. So I left it blank. Made up a story about a one-night stand I didn't want to talk about. Told coworkers and acquaintances I wanted to keep it private. Built a whole life around keeping her invisible. He absorbed that. And when he finally spoke, his voice was rough. You did what I couldn't. You kept her safe. At what cost? The words were bitter in my mouth. She's 6, and she's never had a father. She watches other kids with their dads at the playground and asks me why she's different. Do you know what that feels like? Watching your child think she's not enough to have been kept? Alessandro's eyes snapped to mine. Is that what you told her? That I didn't keep her? I told her you didn't know she existed. Because that was the truth. Or at least that's what I thought was the truth until 10 minutes ago. I pressed my fingers to my temples. Someone intercepted my letter. Someone made sure you never found out. I'll find out who. His tone shifted, became the voice I'd heard him use on the phone late at night. Cold. Absolute. And they'll answer for it. Don't. I grabbed his arm before I could think better of it. His skin was warm through the sweater, and the contact sent electricity up my arm. I pulled back immediately. Don't start a war over this. That's exactly what I was trying to avoid. Someone kept my daughter from me for 6 years, Vivian. There will be consequences. And what if those consequences put her in danger? What if going after whoever did this paints a target on her back? Have you thought about that? He pulled his arm free but didn't step away. I've thought about nothing else since I saw her 2 hours ago. How to protect her. How to fix this. How to make sure no one ever uses her to get to me. You can't protect her by controlling everything. Watch me. The arrogance in his tone sparked my anger back to life. That's not how this works. You don't get to swoop in and take over just because she's my daughter. His voice rose to match mine. Because I have resources and connections and the ability to keep her safer than you ever could alone? The words landed like a slap. Is that a threat? Are you threatening to take her from me? Alessandro's expression shifted, and for the first time since I'd seen him today, he looked uncertain. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? I meant, he stopped, ran a hand through his hair. I don't know what I meant. 2 hours ago, I didn't know I had a daughter. Now I have 6 years to catch up on, and you're standing here telling me I can't protect her the way I know how. The way you know how almost got me killed 6 years ago. The way I know how kept you alive. We were toe-to-toe now, both of us breathing hard. The space between us charged with anger and grief and something else I didn't want to name. My heart was racing, and I couldn't tell if it was fury or the way his nearness made my skin prickle with unwanted awareness. I can't do this, I said finally. I can't stand here and argue about the past when our daughter is in the next room recovering from anaphylaxis. Then what do you want to do? The question hung there, and I realized I didn't have an answer. What did I want? To go back to yesterday, when my biggest problem was making rent and avoiding my supervisor's passive-aggressive schedule notes? To rewind 6 years and force Alessandro to listen when I tried to tell him about the pregnancy? To erase the divorce entirely and pretend we could have survived his world together? My voice broke. I want to know that when we walk out of here tonight, she's still going to be safe. That you're not going to turn our lives upside down because you're angry. I'm not angry at you. Yes, you are. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, maybe I am. But not because you kept her from me, because someone else did, and you paid the price for it. You've been carrying this alone for 6 years, and that's... He stopped. That's on me. The divorce was supposed to protect you. Instead, it just made everything harder. The admission cost him something. I could see it in the tension of his shoulders, the way he wouldn't quite meet my eyes. What happens now? I asked. Now we finish the monitoring period. I make sure you both get home safely. And tomorrow? He finally looked at me, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. Tomorrow we figure out what comes next. I need boundaries, rules. You don't get unlimited access just because… I know. He cut me off gently. I know. We'll work it out. Together. The word together settled in my chest like a promise I wasn't sure I could trust. I need to get back to Livia. He nodded and opened the door for me. As I passed him, his hand came up, hovering just above my elbow like he wanted to touch me but didn't quite dare. Vivienne, I stopped but didn't turn around. Thank you for keeping her safe, for doing it alone when you shouldn't have had to. The words cracked something open inside me, and I had to blink hard against the sudden burn of tears. I walked back to Livia's room without answering. Patricia was showing Livia something on the tablet when I walked in, and my daughter's laugh, bright and unself-conscious, made my heart ache. Mommy, Ms. Patricia has a puppy. Look. I moved to the bed and looked at the screen. Sure enough, a golden retriever puppy tumbled across the display, chasing a tennis ball. His name is Bentley, Patricia said warmly. He's 2 years old and thinks he's still small enough to be a lapdog. He's so cute, Livia was practically vibrating with excitement. Can we get a puppy, Mommy, please? Our apartment doesn't allow pets, baby, you know that. Her face fell, and I felt Alessandro's presence behind me before I heard him. What kind of dog would you want? He asked. If you could have any kind. Livia looked at me, uncertain, and I nodded. Permission to engage. She shrank back against her pillows slightly, studying him with wary eyes before leaning forward again. A big dog, one that could protect us. Mommy works night shifts sometimes, and I worry about her walking home alone. My heart clenched. 6 years old, and she was already thinking about my safety. Alessandro's expression went carefully blank. Does she work night shifts often? Don't, I kept my voice low. Don't start, he ignored me. What else do you worry about, Livia? I worry that Mommy doesn't sleep enough, and that we can't afford the good snacks at the store, and that… She stopped, her small face scrunching up. Are you really my daddy? The question dropped into the room like a bomb. Alessandro moved slowly, carefully, until he was kneeling beside her bed at her eye level. Yes, I am. Why didn't you want to know me before? The raw honesty of it made my throat tight. I didn't know you existed, he said quietly. Your mother tried to tell me, but the message never reached me. If I had known… His voice roughened. If I had known, nothing could have kept me away. Livia studied him with serious eyes. Do you want to know me now? More than anything. Okay. She said it simply, like it was just that easy. Like 6 years of absence could be bridged with a single conversation. But you have to ask Mommy first. She's in charge. Alessandro's eyes flicked to mine, and there was something in them I couldn't quite name. I know she is. Patricia cleared her throat gently. It's almost 7. The monitoring period is complete. I can have the discharge paperwork ready in 10 minutes. Good. I was already moving, gathering our things, desperate to get out of this building before I completely fell apart. We'll be ready. I'm having a car take you home, Alessandro said. We can take the subway. At 7 p.m. with a child who just had anaphylaxis. No. His tone left no room for argument. My driver will take you. He'll wait outside until you're both safely inside. Alessandro, please. The word was quiet, almost broken. Let me do this one thing. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the man I'd fallen in love with 7 years ago, before the violence and the danger became too heavy to carry, before he'd pushed me away to save my life. Fine, but just to Brooklyn, then he leaves. Agreed. The next hour passed in careful choreography, Patricia managing discharge paperwork, while Alessandro stayed back, watching from the doorway as nurses gave me follow-up instructions, forms to sign, a prescription for an EpiPen to keep at home, reminders about secondary reactions. Through it all, Alessandro's presence was a weight I couldn't ignore. The car was waiting at the private entrance, a black SUV with tinted windows and a driver who looked like he moonlighted as a bodyguard. "This is excessive," I muttered as Alessandro held the door open. "This is appropriate." He helped Livia into the back seat, making sure her seatbelt was secure, and the gentleness of it made my chest ache. "I'll call you tomorrow. We need to set up a formal arrangement." "I have work tomorrow." "Then we'll work around your schedule." He paused, then added, "I still have your number, the one you kept all these years, the one you never changed, even when you changed everything else." Zohid noticed. Of course he had. Maybe I just forgot to update it. "You don't forget anything, Vivienne. You kept it because some part of you wanted me to be able to find you." I didn't have an answer for that, so I climbed in beside Livia. The driver pulled away smoothly, and I watched through the rear window as Alessandro stood alone under the clinic's lights, growing smaller with distance. "Mommy," Livia's hand found mine. "Is he going to be around now? Like for real?" I squeezed her fingers. "I don't know, baby. Maybe." "I hope so," she yawned, the day finally catching up to her. "I like him. He has sad eyes like yours." The observation was so accurate it hurt. By the time we reached our apartment in Brooklyn Heights, Livia was asleep against my shoulder. The driver, who'd introduced himself as Graham, helped me get her upstairs and waited until I'd unlocked our door before disappearing back down the stairs. I carried Livia to her room, tucked her into bed still wearing her clothes because I didn't have the heart to wake her, and stood in her doorway watching her breathe. 6 years of keeping her safe. 6 years of building a life that was small but ours. And now Alessandro Moretti knew she existed. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number that was somehow familiar. The number I'd kept saved for 6 years under Do Not Answer. Never quite able to delete it. "Make sure she takes the next dose as instructed. Watch for secondary reactions. Call me if anything changes." Below it, another message. I meant what I said. "We'll figure this out. Together." I stared at the words until they blurred, then set my phone face down on the counter. Tomorrow I'd deal with what came next. Tonight I just needed to breathe. The call came at 2:47 a.m. I jerked awake to my phone vibrating on the nightstand, heart already racing before I even saw the screen. Alessandro's number, the one I'd kept saved all these years, the one that had sat silent for 6 years until tonight. "What's wrong?" I answered, already swinging my legs out of bed. "Is Livia with you?" His voice was tight, controlled in a way that made my stomach drop. "She's asleep in her room." "Why? What?" "Check. Now." I was already moving, phone pressed to my ear as I crossed the hall to her bedroom. Pushed open the door, saw her small form curled under her, purple comforter, her breathing deep and even. "She's here. She's fine. Alessandro, what's going on?" Someone tried to access the clinic's records 20 minutes ago. They were looking for intake files from yesterday. A pause. "I have real-time alerts on any access to those files. The system flagged it immediately. They found you, Vivienne." My blood turned to ice. Who found me? I don't know yet. But they bypassed 3 levels of security to get to those files. This wasn't amateur hour. This was someone who knew exactly what they were looking for. I moved to Livia's window, peering through the curtains at the dark street below. Normal, quiet. A few parked cars. Nothing that screamed danger. But Alessandro wouldn't have called unless it was real. "What do you want me to do?" "Pack a bag. Enough for 3 days. I'm sending a car. It'll be there in 10 minutes. "Wait, what?" "No. We're not just leaving in the middle of the night because—" "Vivienne." The way he said my name stopped me cold. Someone knows you exist. Someone knows where you live. And whoever they are, they went to significant effort to find you within 12 hours of me discovering Livia. That's not coincidence. That's strategy. You think someone's watching us. I think someone's been watching me for 6 years, waiting to see if you'd resurface. And now that you have, they're moving fast. His voice dropped. I'm not taking chances with her safety, or yours. I looked at my daughter, peaceful and unaware, and felt the life I'd built cracking apart. Where would we go? Somewhere secure, somewhere I control every entrance and exit. He anticipated my next question. You'll have your own space, your own room. This isn't about control, it's about protection, I know. The word tasted bitter. That's what you always say. Because it's always true. I closed my eyes, weighing options I didn't really have. Stay here and hope whoever had accessed those files wasn't a real threat? Or trust the man who'd pushed me away 6 years ago because he thought loving him would get me killed? 3 days, I said finally. Then we talk about permanent solutions. Agreed. The car will be there in 8 minutes. Graham will come up to help with bags. I remember how to pack, Alessandro. I know you do. A pause. Softer. I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you wanted. What I wanted was a normal life. I think that ship sailed 6 years ago. I ended the call before he could respond. 15 minutes later, I was loading 2 duffel bags into the back of the black SUV, while Livia, confused and half asleep, clutched her stuffed triceratops and asked questions I couldn't answer. Where are we going? Somewhere safe, baby. Is it because of my daddy? The word daddy in her mouth still felt surreal. It's complicated. You always say that. But she was too tired to push, curling up against me as Graham pulled away from our building and merged into the empty pre-dawn streets. I watched Brooklyn disappear through the rear window and tried not to think about how easily Alessandro had just dismantled my life with a single phone call. The car headed toward Manhattan, crossing the bridge as the city lights spread out before us like scattered diamonds. We wound through the financial district, past buildings I recognized from my old life, until Graham pulled into an underground garage beneath a glass tower that screamed money and power. Top floor, Graham said as we exited into a private elevator. Mr. Moretti is waiting. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse that took up the entire floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Dark hardwood floors. Minimalist furniture that probably cost more than my annual salary. And Alessandro, standing by the windows with his phone pressed to his ear, shoulders tense. He ended the call when he saw us. You made good time. His eyes went to Livia, who was staring around the space with wide eyes. There's a bedroom set up for you down that hall. Purple sheets. I had Patricia handle it. Despite everything, my throat tightened. He'd remembered. Purple. Can I see? Livia asked, looking up at me. Go ahead, baby. I'll be right there. She scampered off, and I heard her small gasp of delight when she found the room. You didn't have to do that, I said. Yes, I did. Alessandro moved closer, and I saw the exhaustion in his face. My pulse jumped at his nearness, an unwanted awareness prickling along my skin. I have security monitoring every entrance to this building. Armed response team on standby. No one gets up here without going through 3 checkpoints and biometric scans. Sounds like a prison. Sounds like safety. He gestured toward the hallway. Your room is next to hers. Private bathroom. Anything you need, just ask. What I need are answers. I crossed my arms. Who's after us? And don't say you don't know. You have theories. Alessandro was quiet for a long moment, and I watched him weighing what to tell me. There are people in my organization who benefited from you being gone. People who thought an attached Alessandro Moretti was a weak Alessandro Moretti. When I signed those divorce papers, I became more effective, more ruthless, more focused. So someone on your side did this. I think someone on my side made sure you never reached me when you tried. And I think that same someone just found out you're back. The implications of that made my stomach churn. Marcus Bennett. Among others. I've had people looking for him since yesterday. We found him 2 hours ago. Portland. Living under an assumed name. Working at a tech startup. One of my investigators recognized his face from a careless social media post. My heart stuttered. You found him? I had every private investigator on the West Coast looking. Money moves fast when you need it to. His jaw tightened. I'm having him brought here. Private jet. He'll be wheels down at Teterboro by late afternoon here. By evening. And then what? And then we get answers. I thought about the letter I'd sent 6 years ago. The one that never reached him. The one that cost us everything. What's the play? You can't just lock us up here forever. No. But I can keep you safe while I figure out who's behind this and eliminate the threat. Eliminate, I studied his face. What does that mean exactly? It means they'll never touch you again. His tone was flat, absolute. Financial ruin, legal prosecution, social destruction. I have a lot of tools, Vivian. I just need to know where to aim them. And Marcus Bennett? Marcus Bennett made a choice 6 years ago that cost me my family. He'll pay for that. But he'll pay in ways that keep him alive to face what he did. I want to talk to him, I said suddenly. When he gets here, I want to be there. I want to hear him explain why he intercepted that letter. Why he thought it was okay to keep a father from his daughter. Alessandro's eyes snapped to mine. Vivienne, I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you this is happening. I set my jaw. You said we'd figure this out together. That means I get answers too. He studied me for a long moment, and I saw the exact second he made his decision. Okay, together. The words settled between us like a promise. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor changed. Went cold. Dangerous. My heart kicked against my ribs at the shift in him. What is it? Someone just tried to access your apartment. He was already moving, pulling up security footage on his phone. 40 minutes ago, 2 men. Building surveillance shows your apartment dark for hours. They confirmed it was empty before moving. They picked your lock, went inside, searched the place. My blood ran cold. Did they take anything? They weren't there to steal. They were there to leave something. He turned the phone toward me, showing grainy footage of a man in dark clothes placing something on my kitchen counter. A phone, burner probably, which means they want to communicate. Or threaten, he agreed. As if on cue, his phone rang. Unknown number. Alessandro put it on speaker. Mr. Moretti, the voice was distorted, mechanical. I believe you have something that belongs to me. I don't deal with people who hide behind voice modulators. And I don't deal with people who make threats they can't follow through on. But here we are. A pause. You've been looking for answers. I have them. All of them. The question is, what are you willing to trade? I don't negotiate with... I know about the girl. The words dropped like a bomb. I know where she goes to school. I know her teacher's name is Mrs. Rodriguez. I know she has a purple backpack with a dinosaur keychain. I know everything, Alessandro. The question is, do you want to keep her safe? Ice flooded my veins. They've been watching her, I whispered. For how long? Alessandro's hand found my elbow, steadying, and the contact sent electricity up my arm even as terror paralyzed me. His expression went absolutely blank, which I'd learned was when he was most dangerous. What do you want? A conversation, just you and me, neutral ground, no security, no weapons, no wire. And if I refuse, then I send what I know to certain parties who would be very interested in leveraging a weak point in your organization. You know the ones. The Russians who are still angry about what happened to Volkov. The families you displaced. The people who have scores to settle. Alessandro's hand tightened on my arm. When and where? Tonight, midnight. The old pier at Red Hook. Come alone, or the girls' school gets a very dangerous visit tomorrow morning. How will you verify I'm alone? We'll be watching your approach. Thermal imaging. We'll see if you bring anyone within a mile radius. A pause. Don't test me on this, Alessandro. I've been 3 steps ahead of you for 6 years. I'm not about to lose now. The line went dead. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think past the image of someone approaching Livia's school. Someone hurting her because of me. Because of Alessandro. We have to pull her out, I said. We have to... Already done. Alessandro was typing rapidly on his phone. I'm having Patricia contact the school now. Family emergency, indefinite leave. She won't be there tomorrow. And tonight? You're not actually going to meet this person alone. I don't have a choice. Yes, you do. You call the police. You have them. The police can't help with this. He looked at me, and I saw something dark in his eyes. This is my world, Vivienne. These are my rules. And I'm going to finish this. By walking into an obvious trap? By finding out who's been controlling my life for 6 years and making sure they never do it again. The determination in his voice terrified me more than the threat itself. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. You don't get to decide that. I do when it's your life on the line. He moved closer, his presence overwhelming, and my breath stuttered despite my fear. You stay here with Livia. Patricia will be here within the hour. Graham will be stationed outside, and I'll handle this. The way you handled it 6 years ago, by pushing me away? The words landed like a slap, and I watched him flinch. That's not fair. None of this is fair, but if you think I'm going to sit here while you walk into a trap, you don't know me at all. We stared at each other, the air between us charged with fear and fury, and something neither of us would name. Heat crawled up my neck despite my anger, despite everything. Mommy? We both turned to find Livia in the doorway, her pajamas rumpled, eyes wide and frightened. Why are you fighting? I heard yelling. I moved to her immediately, kneeling down. We're not fighting, baby. We're just discussing something important. Is someone trying to hurt us? The directness of the question stole my breath. I won't let that happen, Alessandro said, before I could answer. He crossed to us, crouching down to her level. I promise you, Livia, no one is going to hurt you or your mother. I'll make sure of it. How? By being very, very careful, and very, very smart. He reached out slowly, and when she didn't pull away, he touched her shoulder. Do you trust me? She thought about it with the seriousness only a 6-year-old could manage. Then, Mommy trusts you, so I guess I do too. The simple statement cracked something open in his face, and I watched him struggle to maintain control. Thank you, he said quietly. She nodded, then looked at me. Can I have breakfast? I'm really hungry. Of course, baby, I stood, squeezing Alessandro's shoulder as I passed him. His warmth seeped through his shirt, and I pulled my hand back quickly. A silent message. We're not done talking. He nodded, understanding. The day passed in tense waiting. Patricia arrived with more clothes and supplies, her professional demeanor never cracking even as she efficiently transformed the guest room into a command center. Graham stationed himself by the elevator with an earpiece and an expression that said he was ready for war. Alessandro spent hours on the phone, coordinating security, pulling strings, setting up contingencies, and I watched the clock tick toward midnight, knowing that when it came, everything would change. By late afternoon, 2 of Alessandro's men arrived with Marcus Bennett. He looked smaller than I'd imagined. Mid-40s, thinning hair, expensive glasses, the kind of unremarkable face that disappeared in crowds. He was escorted into the living room, flanked by security, his expression carefully neutral. But his eyes darted between Alessandro and me with barely concealed fear. Sit, Alessandro said, his voice ice. Marcus sat. You know why you're here. I can guess. Marcus's voice was steady, but I saw his hands shaking. You found out about the letter. 6 years, I said, my voice cracking. You kept that letter from him for 6 years. Do you have any idea what you cost us? Marcus looked at me, and something like regret flickered across his face. I was following orders. Whose orders? Alessandro's tone could have cut glass. I can't. Alessandro moved so fast I barely saw it. He didn't touch Marcus, just leaned down until they were eye level. His hands braced on the arms of the chair. You have 5 seconds to start talking, or I will make the rest of your life unbearable. Financial ruin is just the beginning. Every firm you've ever worked for will know you're compromised. Every client will know you can't be trusted. Your wife will know about the assistant you were sleeping with in 2019. Your Victor Reeves. The name burst out of Marcus like a confession. It was Victor Reeves. He's been on your board for 8 years. He told me to intercept anything from her. Said it was for your protection. Said you were better off without distractions. Alessandro went very still. Victor. He paid me $200,000 to disappear after. Set me up in Portland. New identity, new job. Told me if I ever came back or talked, he'd make sure I never worked again. Marcus's voice broke. I'm sorry, I needed the money. My wife was sick. We had medical bills, and he made it sound like I was helping you. I felt sick. $200,000. That's what our family had been worth to this man. Did Victor make the call this morning? Alessandro asked. The one about the school? Marcus looked confused. What call? I don't know anything about that. Victor hasn't contacted me since I left New York. I thought it was over. Alessandro straightened, pulling out his phone. He stepped away, speaking in low, rapid tones I couldn't quite hear. I stared at Marcus Bennett, this ordinary man who'd made an ordinary choice that had destroyed 6 years of our lives. She's 6 years old, I said quietly. My daughter, his daughter. She's been asking about her father since she was old enough to understand what fathers were. And you made sure she grew up without one. I'm sorry, tears tracked down Marcus's face. I'm so sorry. I thought I was doing the right thing. Victor said. Victor lied. Alessandro's voice cut through the room as he returned. And now he's going to answer for it. He nodded to his security. Take him to a secure location. Keep him comfortable but contained. He doesn't leave, doesn't make calls, doesn't talk to anyone until this is finished. As they escorted Marcus out, Alessandro's phone rang again, the distorted voice. I hope you're not bringing friends tonight, Alessandro. I'd hate for the little girl to suffer because you can't follow simple instructions. Victor, Alessandro's voice was deadly calm. Let's stop playing games. I know it's you. A pause, then a laugh, cold, satisfied. Took you long enough. I was beginning to think you'd lost your edge. Why? Because you were supposed to be untouchable. The moment you married that nurse, you became soft, predictable. The divorce fixed you, made you dangerous again. I've spent 6 years keeping you that way. Another pause. And then she resurfaces with a child, and suddenly you're making mistakes. Emotional decisions. That's not the Alessandro Moretti I need running this organization. You don't run me, don't I? I've been directing your life for 6 years. Every choice you made, I nudged you toward. Every business decision, every territorial expansion. All of it designed to keep you focused and effective. And it worked, until yesterday. Alessandro's hand tightened on the phone. So what? You're going to kill me and take over? Kill you? No. I'm going to give you a choice. Walk away from them, send them back to Brooklyn. Erase them from your life, and I'll keep them safe. Make sure no one ever knows the girl exists. Make sure they live quiet, protected lives, far away from your world. His voice turned cold. Or keep them close, and I'll make sure every enemy you've ever made knows exactly how to hurt you. The Russians, the Italians, every family you've destroyed. They'll all know about the little girl with the purple backpack. My vision blurred. The same choice. 6 years later, the same impossible choice. Midnight, Victor continued. Red Hook Pier. You come alone, and we'll settle this. One way or another, Alessandro, you're going to learn that some men aren't meant to have families. The line went dead. Alessandro stood frozen, his face carved from stone, and I saw the exact moment the weight of it crushed him. He's right, he said finally, his voice hollow. Everyone I touch gets hurt. 6 years ago, I pushed you away to save you. And here we are again, with the same threat, the same choice. No. I crossed to him, grabbing his arm. It's not the same. 6 years ago, you made that choice alone. This time, I'm here, and I'm telling you, we fight. Vivian. We fight, I said again, fierce. Not just you, us. Together. That's what you said, remember? Together. He looked at me, and I saw everything in his eyes. Fear, love, desperation. I can't lose you again, either of you. Then don't go alone. We stared at each other, and slowly, I watched the decision form. At 11 p.m., Alessandro found me on the balcony, staring out at the city. Livia's asleep, I said, without turning around. Patricia's in the guest room. Graham is on the door. I know. You're still going. I am, but not alone. He moved to stand beside me. I'm bringing backup. Remote positioning. Thermal monitoring. If Victor has people watching, we'll know. And if it goes wrong, then Patricia has instructions. Money, security, everything you need. You'll both be taken care of. Don't. My voice shook. Don't talk like that. He turned me to face him, his hands on my shoulders, and I couldn't stop the way my body responded. My pulse jumping, warmth spreading through my chest despite the fear. I need you to understand something. His voice was rough. If this goes bad, if I don't come back, you take Livia and you disappear. Patricia will help. You go somewhere Victor can't find you, and you build that quiet life you wanted, away from all of this. Stop. And you tell her. His voice cracked. You tell her I loved her from the moment I knew she existed. That every choice I made was to keep her safe. Tears burned my eyes. You can tell her yourself when you come home. He pulled me against him then, not a kiss, just holding me. His arms solid and warm, his chin resting on top of my head. My breath stuttered. My body remembered this, the way he used to hold me like I was something precious. The way his warmth seeped through my clothes, making me feel safe even when everything was falling apart. "I'm sorry," he said into my hair. "For all of it. For the divorce. For the years you were alone. For dragging you back into this. Stop apologizing and promise me you'll be careful. I promise." He pulled back just enough to look at me, and the intensity in his eyes made my heart slam against my ribs. "When this is over, when it's safe, we're going to talk. Really talk. About what comes next. About us. There is no us. There's always been an us, Vivian. Even when I pushed you away. Even when you disappeared. There was always an us." He kissed my forehead, soft and lingering, and my knees went weak. His lips were warm against my skin, and for just a second, I let myself remember what it felt like to be loved by him. Then he stepped back. "Stay with Livia. If anything happens to me, Patricia has instructions. Money, security, everything you need. You'll both be taken care of. Don't," my voice cracked. "Don't say it like you're already gone. I have to, because if something goes wrong, I need to know you understand." He stopped, jaw working. "I need to know you understand that keeping you safe was always the only thing that mattered." Then he was gone, disappearing into the penthouse, and I heard the elevator descend. I stood on that balcony, overlooking a city that sparkled like scattered stars, and prayed that Alessandro Moretti would come home alive. The pier was empty when Alessandro arrived at 11:55 p.m. Not silent, the water lapped against the rotting posts, and somewhere in the distance a ship's horn echoed across the harbor. But empty of people, empty of obvious threats. He stepped out of the car, leaving Graham at the wheel with instructions to stay put unless signaled. The dock creaked under his feet as he walked toward the end, where a single figure stood silhouetted against the city lights. Victor Reeves turned when Alessandro was 20 feet away. "You came alone. Good. I wasn't sure you'd be smart enough to follow instructions." Victor's voice carried across the space between them. No modulator now, just the familiar corporate smoothness Alessandro had heard in 100 board meetings. "Let's skip the posturing. You wanted to talk." "Talk," Victor smiled. "Direct as always. That's what I've always admired about you, Alessandro. No wasted motion, no sentimentality. At least that's how you used to be, before the nurse showed up again. Get to the point. The point is simple. You're about to make a choice. Send them away, back to Brooklyn, back to obscurity, and I guarantee their safety. No one will ever know the girl exists. Or keep them close, and I'll make sure every enemy you've ever made knows exactly how to hurt you." Alessandro's phone buzzed in his pocket. Once. The signal. "Interesting offer, but I think I'll take option 3. Victor's expression shifted. "There is no option 3. "Sure there is. The one where you go to federal prison for 20 years. Footlights blazed to life across the pier. 6 FBI agents in tactical gear emerged from the shadows, weapons drawn. "Victor Reeves, FBI. You're under arrest for securities fraud, racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy." Victor's face went white, then red. "You set me up. You set yourself up 6 years ago when you intercepted that letter. You just didn't realize I'd eventually find out." Alessandro stepped closer as agents moved in to cuff Victor. "That embezzlement scheme you thought you'd hidden so well? The FBI's been investigating you for months. I just gave them everything they needed to make it stick. You set me up, this isn't over, I have copies of everything." "No, you don't. And even if you did, the moment you're convicted, no one will believe a word you say." Alessandro's voice dropped to something lethal. "You're done, Victor, completely." They dragged Victor away, still shouting threats that echoed across the empty pier. Alessandro pulled out his phone and dialed. "Are you okay?" His voice came through rough, exhausted, but alive. "I'm fine. It's over." I was pacing the living room, watching the clock, my phone clutched in my hand like a lifeline. Patricia sat in the corner, her tablet glowing. Graham stood by the elevator, silent and alert. Relief crashed through me so hard I had to grip the couch arm to stay standing. My heart was still racing, my body betraying how terrified I'd been. Victor? In federal custody. FBI took him 20 minutes ago. A pause. I'm coming home. Home. The words settled in my chest like warmth. How long? 15 minutes, maybe less. Alessandro looked like he'd aged a decade in 3 hours. His clothes were disheveled, his jaw tight with exhaustion, and there was a darkness in his eyes that said whatever had happened at that pier had cost him something. But he was alive. He was home. Tell me everything, I said. He moved to the windows, and I followed. Patricia quietly excused herself, Graham following, leaving us alone. The FBI had been investigating Victor for months, securities irregularities they couldn't pin down. I gave them everything they needed. Bank records, shell companies, offshore accounts. Handed them a prosecutable case. His voice was flat. Victor was good at hiding it, but once I knew to look, it all came apart. And the threat? About exposing Livia to your enemies? I made calls before I went to the pier. Made it clear that anyone who came after my family would face mutually assured destruction. I have enough evidence on each of them to ensure we all go down together if they try. That keeps everyone in check. So it's really over. It's over. Victor will spend the next 20 years in federal prison. He turned to face me. And I'm stepping back from day-to-day operations. Patricia's taking on COO responsibilities. I'm bringing in outside consultants, people with no connection to Victor. I want 40-hour weeks, not 80. Why? Because I want to know my daughter. I want to be at her school events and her birthday parties. I can't do that if I'm the man I've been for the past 6 years. The geek card, vulnerability in his voice cracked something open in my chest. So what does that mean? For us? He was quiet for a long moment. That's up to you. Don't put this all on me. I'm telling you what I want, and then I'm letting you decide. He took a breath. I want to be Livia's father, legally, officially. We'll do the paternity test, update her birth certificate, file proper custody paperwork. I want real time with her, not just supervised visits. My throat tightened. Okay. I want to pay for her school, healthcare, everything she needs. Set up a trust fund. Give her the stability I couldn't provide before. His eyes met mine. And I want to give you the choice I took away 6 years ago. Not control. Not ultimatums. Choice. What do you want from me? Boundaries. Real ones. You tell me what you need, and I'll follow it. You make decisions about your life, and I respect them. We figure out custody together, not me dictating terms. And between us, I gestured at the space separating us. What are we? Whatever you want us to be. Co-parents, friends. Eventually, maybe. He stopped. That's your choice too. I studied his face, looking for the lie, the crack. But all I saw was exhaustion and hope and desperate sincerity. I want boundaries, I said finally. You don't make decisions about my life without asking. Not about my job, not about where I live, not about Livia. Agreed. I'm back at work 3 days a week. We'll coordinate around Livia's routine. I'm keeping my apartment in Brooklyn. We'll do 1 week here for safety. Then we go back to Brooklyn, together. This place is secure, but it isn't home. Okay. And I want us to figure out custody together. Equal input. You don't get to swoop in with money and resources and take over. I won't. His voice steadied. I promise. And I want time to rebuild trust, to make sure you're not going to disappear the moment things get hard again. I'm not going anywhere, not unless you tell me to leave. He moved closer. And even then, I'll fight for the right to stay in Livia's life. You can't just fight for control. I'll fight for you, for us, for the chance to prove I can be the man you both deserve. He reached for my hands, and I let him take them. The contact sent warmth racing up my arms. I know I have to earn your trust back, but if you're willing to let me try. I'm terrified, I admitted, of letting you in and having you rip our lives apart again. I know. But I still love you. I think I never stopped. Vivian. Love isn't enough, though. We need trust, time. We need to prove we can do this without falling apart. I squeezed his hands. So we try. Slowly. Co-parenting first. You get to know Livia. She gets to know you. Then we see what comes next. How slowly? As slowly as I need. I met his eyes. Can you live with that? I can live with anything if it means I get to be part of your lives. Before I could respond, a small voice came from the hallway. Mommy? We both turned to find Livia in the doorway, clutching her triceratops, hair a mess from sleep. What are you doing up, baby? I heard voices. She looked at Alessandro, uncertain. Did you come back? I did. He moved toward her slowly. I promised I would. Are you staying? He crouched to her level. Do you want me to stay? She thought about it seriously. Will you have breakfast with us in the morning? If your mom says it's okay. Livia looked at me and I nodded. Then yes, I'll stay for breakfast. And after breakfast, we'll figure out what comes next. Together, she smiled. Okay, can I go back to bed now? Of course, baby. Can he tuck me in? She looked between us. Alessandro glanced at me, asking permission, and I nodded. I watched them disappear down the hallway, and something in my chest cracked open. 20 minutes later, he returned. She fell asleep halfway through the first story. He sat beside me on the couch, careful to leave space. She asked if I'd be there when she woke up. What did you tell her? That I'd try my best. That sometimes grown-ups have things to do, but I'd always come back. That was perfect. We sat in silence, the city lights glittering through the windows. I should sleep, I said finally. It's almost 2. You take your room, I'll stay out here. This is your home. Until you're ready for me to be closer. He stood, offering his hand. Come on. I let him pull me up, and we walked to my door in silence. Thank you, he said quietly, for giving me a chance, for keeping her safe all these years. He reached up slowly and touched my cheek. His hand was warm, and I leaned into it before I could stop myself. Get some sleep, Vivienne. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow. I nodded and slipped into my room, heart pounding, and heard him walk back to the living room. For the first time in 6 years, I fell asleep knowing Alessandro Moretti was close enough to keep us safe. 3 weeks later. Higher, Daddy, push me higher. I watched from the park bench as Alessandro pushed Livia on the swing, her delighted shrieks carrying across the playground. 3 weeks of careful co-parenting had shown him what I'd known all along. Sometimes the best protection was living a normal life. Patricia appeared beside me with 2 coffee cups. Thought you might need this. Lifesaver, I took it gratefully. How are things at the office? Smooth. Alessandro's down to 40-hour weeks, and the delegation strategy is working. We watched Alessandro help Livia across the monkey bars, his hands hovering beneath her. He called her teacher yesterday, I said. Spent 2 hours researching age-appropriate math games. Sounds like Alessandro. Livia ran back, breathless. Mommy, can Daddy come to my class presentation? I'm doing Triceratops. Of course, if he's available. I'm available, Alessandro said immediately. Wouldn't miss it. She beamed and ran toward the slides. Alessandro sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. His shoulder was warm against mine, solid and real, and my pulse jumped at the simple contact. She's incredible, he said. Good genetics, I nudged him. And a lot of trial and error, he laughed. She told me yelling doesn't fix machines, and I should use my patient voice. Welcome to fatherhood. We sat watching Livia play, and something in my chest settled. Patricia found us an apartment, Alessandro said, in Brooklyn. 10 blocks from your place, 2 bedrooms. I thought Livia could stay some weekends. I turned to look at him. You're moving to Brooklyn. Part-time. I want to be close. Pick her up from school, take her to the park, be part of her everyday life. He met my eyes. If that's okay. More than okay. And maybe, eventually, when you're ready. He stopped, then started again. Maybe we could talk about what comes after co-parenting. My breath caught. Alessandro. Not now, I know, but someday. He reached over and took my hand, lacing our fingers together. His fingers were warm, steady, and heat spread through me at the contact. Someday, if you'll have me. I looked at our joined hands, at Livia playing, at the life we were building. Someday, I agreed. When we're both ready, Livia ran back, grabbing both our hands. Come on, the big slide. You have to go down together. Together? Alessandro looked at me. Together, I confirmed. And as our daughter dragged us toward the playground, both of us laughing, I realized we were going to be okay. Not perfect. Not without challenges, but together. And that was enough. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe so you don't miss the next Mafia love story. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what you thought of this narrator. Your feedback really helps me make these even better for you. Thank you for letting my stories keep you company. It truly means more than you know.